Welcome to the CEO's Heart for Service, where leaders of exceptional B2B businesses work together to answer this question: how do you scale your services without compromising your client experience or the core values that drive them? I'm your host, Matt Wolf. Join us as B2B leaders share hard-won insights and field-tested strategies for the tightrope walk between integrity and growth. We'll find our balance and the way forward together. Everybody, welcome back to the CEO's Heart for Service. Again, I'm Matt Wolf, partner at Brand 3, and I get the pleasure of getting to hang out with Sarah Patisal again. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, everyone.
What a fun one today. You're about to get to meet Mike Garrison. He is the founder of Strategic Referral Team. I'll just read this bit from his website. He has created a powerful coaching program for helping people build their own referral systems and strategies. Strategic Referral Team is built for owners of established professional service firms with ideal client values of at least $250,000 who want to scale by design, not by chance, working with financial, legal, accounting firm owners, consulting, coaching, M&A advisory, boutique firm leaders, serving sophisticated business clients. But beyond that fancy language, you're about to meet a guy with just exceptional heart behind what he's doing. What did you take away from today's conversation?
No, this conversation was just incredible for so many reasons. But what's really unique is that Mike brings such an authentic and vulnerable perspective to business and referral partnerships and how you go about getting referral partners, which actually isn't at all about the getting, but all about the giving. And I think that this conversation is going to be helpful for so many people trying to figure out how to grow their business and their network.
Yeah, I can't think, Sarah, the last time I saw such a powerful mix in a leader like Mike of strong, determined goal setting, right? He's strong on structure and goal setting and challenging people to be their best, mixed with this sense of vulnerability and humanity. So you just don't see both of those things collide together in such a helpful way. And that's what you're going to get, right? That's what you're going to get from Mike. So
I was just going to say quick, at some points, our conversation turned deeply philosophical in really surprising ways. And as you'll hear, Mike is actually an author as well. And Mike, if you are listening to this, and you want any ideas, I think your next book should be in the realm of business ethics, and I'm happy to chat more.
Yeah, he's written several books. We're going to talk about those. I just can't wait for you all to meet Mike Garrison, and let's go there now. Mike, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Well, I'm glad I'm here. This is going to be a lot of fun. It was exciting to meet somebody who gets what I'm talking about. So I can't wait.
Yeah, we were definitely very much on the same page when we chatted the other day. There's a lot to talk about. We're actually, when we get into it, we're tackling the same issue, but from different seats and different sides of it, I think in a really helpful way. But let me hop in. Okay, so the first thing we like to do, we're talking about B2B marketing. We're talking about, and when we talk about that, we're talking about businesses that are delivering what we call like high trust, high stakes services like these. We're asking people, let me take care of your finances, your business exit strategy, your tech platform, your marketing, your future essentially, and your ability to sort of exist and move forward. Like those are big asks built on trust and relationship, and things only happen when we get to facilitate human encounters. We're trying to figure out how to make marketing less digital, more human on the end of things here on our side. But to sort of honor that, we just like to start with a nice human question, and then we're going to end with some nice human questions at the end. The first question we tend to like to ask here is just, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Because you probably didn't imagine you would start Strategic Referral Team when you were 7 or 8.
I was going through the pre-show prep. I cannot remember what I used to be, what I used to want. And it's because I'm old. But honestly, like the personal side is I'm a child of a very bad divorce, right? So My parents blew up my entire life when I was 11. All I knew is I wanted to leave.
Wow,
That's all
okay.
I knew. So
Yeah.
I had offers for scholarships, but I couldn't get my parents to sign the financial aid paperwork without fighting. And I was like, "You know what? I have a solution. It's called the military." And so all I wanted to do was jump out of planes. I have no idea why. I have no idea why.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I went into the military, still had no idea what I wanted to do, but very shortly after joining the military, I knew it wasn't that. Like, I had a great time, but I was in a special forces unit. It was incredibly hard. I was a support guy, and it was hard, and I've still got injuries and stuff. Went to college because I'd gotten a lot of money for college from the military and figured I'd use it. Last class of my associate's degree was in speech communication. I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. I like that. It was the first class I took that made sense to me, and I majored in that, honors at George Mason, and met a great guy who sold copiers. He owned a copier sales company and decided that's what I was going to do. But it was only when I met Art Radke, who I talk about in Can I Borrow Your Car, at a BNI meeting, that I was like, I walked up to him, and it was so much of a discipling kind of thing, like follow me, Rabbi. I went up to him after the BNI meeting, and he had talked only for 10, 15 minutes about networking as a human being. And I said, I don't know how, but I know that you can help me get to what I want to be. I want to be able to talk like you, and I want to be able to help people. And Art was the guy that was part of my becoming a Christian. He was a big part of that faith journey,
Mm.
and also the most gifted teacher I've ever known.
Mhm.
Very frustrating
Amazing.
teacher.
Oh.
Never would tell you the answer ever. So
The best teachers are usually
yeah,
frustrating in my
he's terrible.
experience.
But great guy.
That is a very rabbi-like approach. You know? Let's ask a
Yes.
question, let you find the answer. That's amazing. It's such a gift to have those people in our lives, and I don't know that we recognize it as clearly until we do get a little older. There are just certain people who step into our lives and in a really powerful way, either just directly or through their actions say, "I believe in you. You can do this thing." I've had a few moments like that. My most recent was when Orshi, my partner here at Brand 3, said, "Do you want to be a partner at Brand 3?" And I'd been a safe little solopreneur up until that point. And you have to pay attention to those moments. But you do have such an interesting background. You talked about some of this the other day, and there were two things that just made me stand up with absolute respect. And the first, of course, was your military service, and thank you for your service and what you gave us there. I know you served out here in Washington State, and we talked about that, Fort Lewis. But then you then you brought up the copy sales guy thing too, right? And I immediately stood up. It's almost like I have to say thank you for your service again. For those of us that grew up at that time, we kind of know what that was. It's a tough gig.
Look, you haven't been in sales until you're in a 3-piece suit in an industrial park.
Yeah.
Cold calling industrial base
Yeah.
in August.
And tough, right? Because everyone kind of had their copier, and you got to meet them at the right point of need. But that's kind of like a lot of the services that we meet with and talk about in these high stakes, high trust things, right? Like there are certain windows where people are going to be open to it and where they recognize the need to move forward. And a lot of the question becomes, how do you build relationships with people and stay in their awareness and sort of play that long game until they realize, oh, time for a switch, but I like that guy or I like that gal.
Or you cut line by referral.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. And we'll talk about that too. Can you trace for us a little, because you're one of our favorite kinds of guests for a number of reasons. From talking to you the other day, you clearly have a heart for service. But you've also built, and you've been a businessman, and now you're in the consulting space. And I think that gives you a wonderful perspective to speak to the theme of the podcast and this idea of scaling and staying true to your values and how you serve people. Can you just track for us a little bit? How do you get from copy sales to the business we have today, to Strategic Referral Team?
One word, discipling. So the reason people talk about referrals not scaling, which is false, is because they've never understood the disciple making process. I'm a direct result of intentional disciple making by men and women, very, very gifted people not all of which that were devout Christians, but all of which were values-based people, at least nominal Christians. And that's how you do it, because like if you want to remain human, right, which is what service is about. I don't believe that you can deliver exceptional service if it's just based upon monetary results, even though exceptional service does cash flow, right? It absolutely does. But it's, if you want to be heartfelt, like, so I was talking to a guy today about a big referral he's going to give me to do some exit planning for a client of his. And he's like, how do we do this process? And I said, what we have to do is we have to call the current owner, who's the father, into the next level of intentional leadership. And then we have to, with that room that's created as he grows as a leader, then we have to call his son into a level of intentional leadership, right? And we're going to do this all through discipling. And so that's the process, because evangelism is 1v1. It's kind of like those really bad direct messages on LinkedIn that we all get all the time, right? It only scales through mediocrity. But discipling, which is the multi-generational, intentional growth and care of human beings, service, which is why I love you guys, that is how we scale as humans.
That's some powerful stuff, man. I love this. I'm wondering though, if you could give an example of what that discipling has looked like over, like for you personally, over the course of your career, or maybe in the beginning of your career, when you were learning the framework for how you were going to approach that as a leader yourself.
So, lots of pain. No, I'm sorry. So discipling only works if you have a rabbi and someone that's willing to follow. And so there should be affinity between the people. Discipling is not delegating. Discipling is a intentional relationship that should deepen and in my belief, it should embody the beauty of humanity, right? So the way it worked was Art, when I went up to him, he told me later, it was like I was walking along the beach and this guy walked up beside me and said, "Hey, Rabbi, where are we going?" And so what happened is he intentionally spent a lot of time with me. I'm just thinking of like this really famous historical figure who was really successful for thousands of years. And like when he started off, he spent a lot of time with a small group of people. And like then they did.
You think there was about 12 of them, right?
Well, there was one, there's some attrition. It did work.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, got to watch out for that silver, right? But anyways, that's really what it was, Sarah. It was he invested an incredible amount of time with me. He put me in positions where I was safe, but where I was forced to grow. He allowed me to make mistakes, and it was the worst and best type of growth I've ever experienced, because I knew we were doing something that was really important, because I was not a believer at the time. I was not a Christian, but I knew that what we were doing, this way of helping people in referral groups change their lives through giving. What I didn't realize is no one else was doing that in BNI. It ended up changing the entire organization, literally.
Yeah.
But that was the process.
Yeah, that's just so fascinating to me because, and Matt, I'm curious if you see it this way as well. I feel like a lot of people, when they think about the kind of relationship and mentorship that you just described, Mike, they're not thinking about that in the context of how their business is treating clients or referral partners. They're thinking about that more so, and, how are we going to get ahead, or how we're treating our employees internally. And I feel like there's this kind of perspective shift that's required a bit to take on that mindset fully in all of your engagements. And then that makes me curious. Well, first, Matt, let me let you chime in and see if you have any thoughts there.
No, I think you're on a roll. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, because then that question leads me to ask you, Mike, given that it's not enough to just learn how to take on this discipling or how to be a part of it, but you really have to fundamentally change your perspective and your approach to business and leadership and life. How does strategic referral team fit into all of that? And how is that part of your process and what you all help people do?
I'm just going to start with a disclaimer. I'm a serial entrepreneur and I'm already building 2 other companies that's strategic. So strategic referral team is going to morph into a product line.
Well, then tell us about the new companies. Let's get some plugs in.
Well, it's always interesting, but we're going to be rebranding down the road under Can I Borrow Your Car? That will be the parent company because it's not just a book. It's actually our identity. It's our identity. Our identity
Yeah, I
is
noticed that
about
with the podcast.
intentionally mitigating risk, right? I believe that Can I Borrow Your Car is a book about 2 things. So it's really a book about networking, but that's just a disguise because it's really about how do you become a fiduciary, an intentional fiduciary of human beings. How do you work to do what is in their best interest, knowing that down the road, either first generation, second or third, or maybe never, you will be better. Because this is what people don't get about referrals. Like what I'm really selling you is an endless process of personal development because you're the channel. So many referral programs don't scale because the human being doesn't, because the human being is not encouraged and nurtured and developed to be able to operate at a larger scale. And so they just tend to be shallow, kind of like, I don't know, there's this story about, growing grain, tale of the sower, right? So like you really, that's why we talk about cultivate, plant, reap, which is kind of our execution model, right? But at the end of the day, here's what we do. We do 2 basic things. Number 1, I will help anyone that wants to learn how to really do referrals at scale in a predictable sense. But I'm going to ask them a very important question, and it's a trick, right? So, Sarah, is it all right if I pick on Matt?
I think that that's a great idea.
Okay,
I say go
hey,
for it.
Matt, I would never pick on you. However, Sarah said it's okay. So, Matt,
I
I'm going to
did.
ask you.
Yeah. If Sarah says it's okay, then it must be okay.
I thought it would be. So, Matt, you have to answer like a real person. Matt,
Okay.
I'll
try.
How would you love to get referrals given to you predictably?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay. The secret is to do it for other people first.
Right.
Right. And so the whole thing around strategic referral team, values-based mindset, Can I Borrow Your Car? My latest book, Would You Build This? It's all about understanding that for you to be a safe driver, you have to learn how to drive. And the coin of the realm, Sarah, is giving it on purpose. And not talking about giving like a Chamber of Commerce mixers and events, but literally my best clients schedule time every week to think about their giving system. And at the highest level, they're all putting on their payroll a referral concierge whose entire job for the organization is to lead giving.
Wow.
So I do that usually for financial services firms.
Boy, that is fantastic. That really does turn everything on its ear in terms of what people would normally invest in and what they would typically value. But, it's not hard to see why that would pay off.
Well,
I think it's hard
yeah.
once it's revealed, right? But I would have a hard time seeing anyone imagining that on their own.
Yeah.
To get to that.
So the challenge becomes, right? And this is why I make a lot of fun about being a hashtag referral predator, hashtag referral beggar. Most referral systems are around the measurement of activity, and we're all marketers on this call. So we know there has to be a certain amount of measurable activity. I'm just going to say activity to be able to have enough data to tell us if it worked and what do we have to change. Well, the problem is if all of your activity, your system for activity is based upon you only asking other people to help you. Number 1, it doesn't balance. Number 2, if you're the right kind of person that's going to have people wanting to give you referrals anyways, it's going to start getting awkward. And I never see very successful people, even if they built their business initially that way, I never see them continuing it. Here's what I do know. When I develop the skills and the network to be able to give referrals, easily and also powerfully with intention, people like it when I ask them how I can help because they believe I actually can and I will. And by the way, every time, and here's our script. You ready? It's unbelievable. It's the most complicated script. It's like, hey, Matt, I love referrals. How can I help you?
That's perfect.
Very, very intricate.
So
Very intricate.
I've got a couple of follow-up thoughts and a question, which is, well, first off, you're giving me some deeply philosophical vibes in a lot of what you're saying, and I'm very much enjoying that. And I feel like what you're fundamentally describing is moving from a reactive mindset when it comes to referrals to being very proactive and intentional in how you go about that. I think that what I've seen from businesses that I've worked with, and what we do at Brand 3 a lot in helping people identify their niche and their unique value proposition, what makes them truly exceptional at what they do, that can be one of the biggest discoveries and the biggest challenges. And I feel like you probably face a similar challenge, which is what value can I offer these people that I want to make my referral partners? And how do you help businesses answer that question?
So I am not sarcastic. I'm just cynical. So I always say to people, I said, look, you got a choice. You can be identified, so you can declare your value proposition around what it is that you do, stupid, or you can identify it around the result for your client after they have successfully executed on what you do. So in the realm of professional service providers, my ideal client profile is predicated around the percentage chance of success of that client experiencing massive 10x ROI from using me. It's not about whether they can pay me or what they do. I'm looking for a specific type of athlete, right? And so it's always financial services, but within financial services, it's really narrow. My last book, my publisher's like, you're really only talking to 1,000 people in the country as ideal prospects. I go, on one level, yes. So that's part of it, Sarah. But here's what I tell people. Most of what I consider to be the ideal client profile stuff and value proposition and avatar and blah, 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 blah. Most of that stuff I find is aimed at the bottom 20% of the buying process, which isn't without value, but that's amateur time, right? You're competing.
Yeah, you need to consider the entire market funnel.
Well, the biggest thing is this, is like, if your marketing program is designed to have the client discover you when they want to talk to you, you're a victim. So my thing is how do you become worth meeting? And this is the first question I ask every client when they hire me, right? Not that Brand 3 would ever need to, but my first question would be, let's start discussing why you're worth meeting when I'm not in the market for what you do. Because if your value proposition can't stand up to that, it's not a value proposition. Fundamentally, Sarah, you have to be worth meeting as a human being.
Yeah.
Now that's different. That's referral. This is referrals, right? So the way you scale in referrals is you have to look at marketing science. You have to understand the math, but then you also have to understand the channel as a human being. It's not an algorithm. It's not, a gateway where you have to figure out how to get your emails through it, right? It's a human being. And at the end of the day, that human being is either going to believe in you enough to put their personal integrity on the line or not. I get more referrals because I have a severely autistic son and I talk about it enough online to try and help people, and because I possess the most glorious hobby in the world, fly fishing, right? But I get so many referrals because of that. And people know what I do. They know what I'm about. And so they're never introducing me to a florist. right? But like, the guy I
Mhm.
was talking to today that we're working with is a passionate fly fisher. We spent a half an hour of the hour meeting talking about fishing, and then rapid fire went through some stuff. He's a relationship I've known for less than 120 days, and we're talking about six-figure deals.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
amazing. And Matt, I want to see if you have any thoughts you want to share on this, because throughout this conversation, a lot of what you've been talking about, Mike, I'm just seeing so many parallels between what you're describing and StoryBrand and a lot of our process. And Matt, I'm sure you probably have some thoughts there.
So many thoughts. I'm just trying to like organize them all with everything
There's
you're
a
tossing out
lot.
here, Mike. It's so good. The story brand piece of it. Yeah. I mean, what story brand does, it disciplines you. It forces you to focus on empathy. It focuses you on really trying to understand the other person and to understand their story before you tell yours, and then it plays out in the way that we use it. You always start with what that person is trying to accomplish, what is in their way, and then they meet you. And I always tell people it's such a more fun way to arrive into a story than to try and force your story on someone else, is to tell theirs and make them feel truly heard and understood and seen, and then arrive within their story as in StoryBrand terms, we say the potential client is the hero of the story. They're the protagonist. You arrive as the helpful guide. You arrive as the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Gandalf, the Dumbledore, in that moment. The rabbi, to help walk along the journey and say, I really see where you are and who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. And I've been down this road. I've seen how you can solve it. And I would like to go on this journey with you, right? Rather than I would like to sell you some stuff. I would like to sell you some services. It all begins with empathy and understanding. And everything you're talking about. So, Mike, what we talked about the other day is if people look at the new program we're rolling out, the Scale Beyond Referrals, and then yours, where you're talking about scaling trust through referrals, and there are phrases on your website, and we had never met. And I had never seen your website until about a week ago. And I was like, wait a minute. Did we meet somehow and I missed it? Like, it was that kind of encounter, because we're also putting this huge, right? We're talking about B2B space, especially finance is a big focus of ours. Like I said, high stakes, high trust things where everything has to be about meeting humans. And we just did our first workshop for Scale Beyond Referrals yesterday. And we were talking a lot to people about how, we have been conditioned to forget the humanity of our marketing in a lot of ways. We've been taught in the recent years, we've been taught, put a bunch of information out there. Put a bunch of stuff out there and trust that people will respond to that and they'll fill out a lead form and all these things. Well, they don't just need the information. They need everything you just said. They need to meet the human behind the brand too. And they do need to know the fly fishing, and they do need to know about your son. And in my case, my theater background and this crazy thing I did where I bought a boat and like all these weird passions that I have, right? So that we can connect as whole people. Because the question people are really trying to answer in their head when they're thinking about hiring a B2B sales provider, service provider, isn't, do you know what you're doing? It's, do I trust you in all possible ways? Do I trust that you do know what you're talking
It,
about? But do I trust you as a human as well?
actually,
It,
I think it's beyond that. So I'm a big, I've been through the Donald Miller stuff. I don't have any of the worksheets anymore, but I used to, as part of my coaching practice, I would take people through StoryBrand. So I love it. But I'm convinced that we are past that. Unfortunately, I still think that's very valuable. And so I'm a big fan of the frame making sale, because what I'm noticing, the commercial research I see about buyers, commercial buyers and business owners, I'm noticing that it's really the buyer being confident that they're making a good decision, that it's not so much about, are we credible and can they trust us? More deals right now and more sales processes, the length of the sales engagements, they're lengthening. They're getting the buyer teams, like I think we're up to 22 on average in a commercial buying process, 22 people in the process. And if you're not meeting all 22 in the first one or two meetings, you failed, right? So what's happening is these buyers, because there is no hero's journey in marketing out on the internet now. It's also, humans are devalued so much. they don't have confidence. What I do love about StoryBrand is if you can get that owner or their team to engage in that's it really a story about, if they'll engage with that, they're going to be confident because they're going to understand the different acts of the play. They're going to understand that they're the director, right? And that, but that's really the secret. And when you look at referrals, so often people don't understand the people that want to buy from other human beings want to buy from someone that loves them and loves what they love. Like I always say this, if you had a choice, so you love theater, would that be fair to say, Matt?
Sure, yeah.
Right? So if you had a choice between equally credible vendors, between one guy who is a chemical engineer, God bless them. I picked that because that's about as far off of a theater person as I can think of. And someone that was actively volunteering and on the board for a local theater troupe who was just pouring them. Which one would you want to work with?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's number 2, but there's so much wrapped up in that. I mean, that's because I know I know there's a very good chance, even before meeting that person, that we speak a similar language, that we share similar values,
exactly,
similar sense of mission and purpose, right? All of these things that go far beyond the job that I need them to do.
There's a buyer for the chemical engineer too. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I always say, the worst thing in the world, the most craven thing you can do in sales is hide who you are before you're paid. Knowing
I got to give you snaps for that.
Knowing that they'll hate you afterwards.
Yeah. We tell people, that's right.
I real quick love the use of the word craven there. Just had to say that. Excellent.
Little arts degree.
Same English major.
See? Hey, music theater, BFA. So
why not?
Now we have our own tribe, right?
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, I just did yesterday in the workshop, there's 2 people in any relationship and there's 2 great characters in any good marketing story. And I think that's part of what gets misinterpreted in the StoryBrand thing too. Sometimes people think the guide role is being minimized, and they're not. They're a hugely important part of the story. Who you are as a business. And I don't mean just the business, I mean you as the human behind the business, because in the kind of businesses we're talking about, the human really is the brand. And all of who they are has to be considered when you build the brand strategy. But the business is a character in the story. And so is the ideal client. And when we do discovery, our first thing is to discover, who are you, the founder, the face of that brand and the business, as a character. And we can't even figure out who your ICP is, your ideal client persona, until we do that. And we call that process finding your hidden opportunity. Who are you really as a business? And then you've had all this experience with all these different kinds of people, but that within that experience base, there are certain kinds of people. And I don't mean niche. I don't certain kinds of categories or niches. I mean people, certain kinds of humans who when you're working with them, it's all going to click. They're going to be the best served. Your team is going to do its best work. There's going to be actual joy and celebration and the mix of all of that. That it's not just going to feel like work, that you're going to share values. All of that matters. And people don't know they have permission to make that choice of that person.
Yeah.
And we had a guy yesterday whose mind was blown because we were talking through, the rough marketing languages. You're finding your persona, and they've heard that. And he's like, man, and we start people by saying, think about your experience. Who have been your favorite clients for these reasons? And he's like, you mean we're not going to do like a speculative, we made up this guy kind of exercise, and then I'm not going to go out in the world and find out that's not the guy I was talking to, which speaks to your thing earlier, right? Of we're aiming for like the bottom 20%. We are trying to get them to aim for that actual human, unique connection. And much like you, there may only be 1,000 of them out there, but boy, once you guys connect, that thing is it's gonna grow.
I think really at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, how can we make sure that you and your team get to show up to work every day and have an absolute blast being unapologetically your authentic selves.
So have you read Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
Write that down.
you need to. It is not on Audible or Kindle. But it is the best book on customer service ever. I wept as I read it.
Wow.
Because
Yeah.
it talks about what does it mean to have a raving fan. People don't understand that doing good work in no way should engender a referral. Because what the hell what are they paying you for, right? Like I don't hire anybody for mediocre service, but I refer you when I'm a raving fan. And that's when I have an experience of service that is clearly and distinctly almost abnormal. Now, here's the trick. When I do this ideal client work, and I do a lot of it with my clients, I also make them show me mathematically why that client deserves that spot. Like, so I want to see their systems for how, because for me, everything is a sales process. From I want to start making tires to I'm selling a company, everything is sales. And so one of the things that I find that's a weakness when people are doing this type of work is they haven't done the business process work to understand what's my client acquisition cost, what's my onboarding thing. A big part, and I know you guys do this, but a big part of it when I'm working with clients is we are getting in the weeds with their operations team, with their accounting, their CFO, and we are vetting everything on the marketing side through the hard look of finance, which is how I get all of them on board.
The due diligence.
Right? You know, I mean, if you're an exit plan, you better understand due diligence because the LOI means nothing. The only number that counts is when they recast the value within, a couple of days of the close. And that's a playbook in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. You're right. We do a similar thing, and we tell people once you understand who that ideal client is, and then you're going to tell a story about what that relationship is between the business and that ideal client. You tell the right story to the right people. That's your brand strategy, and then that applies to everything: marketing, sales, and especially client experience, because that's where all the fancy promises you made in the websites and in the sales process have to come true. Both for the integrity of the thing, but also for the growth of the business.
Can I say something controversial?
Yes, please.
No, I'm just talking about wealth management. It's impossible to serve lots of different types of ideal clients. Right? And so I'm really talking about this horrible concept of having different levels of service in your business. That's fine if you're a multinational or regional conglomerate.
Exactly.
And you're not at that moment you are commoditizing yourself. Like the second you are different strata of clients, you're commoditizing yourself. What I always say is this: the purpose of doing really good ideal client work is to identify not only who's the most enjoyable, to Sarah's point, but they're also enjoyable because they're profitable and they create enough resources in your organization that you can hire the best talent, treat them the best, they do the best work, you get the best clients. So you have to be virtuous in that. And I tell clients, and I do this all the time with financial advisors, like, how many new clients do you actually want? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, don't talk to me about revenue, but like, how many new clients do you want this year per advisor?
Yeah.
And that number is never over 25, ever. And when we start talking ideal clients, it goes down to 8 to 10. I mean, the average lifetime value for my clients is between $500 to $1 million of a client, of an ideal client, right? Because of the long hold and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's the controversy. Is like you guys are so about service, and so am I. And I'm like, just because they were great clients for you when you began your business and they were incredibly important to you, that doesn't mean that they're great clients now. And usually what I've found is that you cannot optimize customer service for multiple levels of people, right? In Raving Fans, it's really cool. those businesses design their business the way, so they've got a gas station. One guy's a rental, a car guy, like Uber before Uber, then a supermarket. They designed their businesses so they could drive incredibly radical customer service because of the design of their business, but they weren't doing professional services. In professional services, you are the delivery system. Fundamentally, it's about human to human empathy and stuff like that. I don't know. It maybe it's not controversial, but you know what? You can't. Those older clients aren't probably being served well by you anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's controversial at all. I think that, I mean, that's something that we always try to bake into our process when we work with clients. At least once a year, we're looking at their strategy and we're asking ourselves what's changed for them this year in their business goals or in their industry. And based on those changes, is our current strategy still going to help them meet their goals? And if that answer is no, then we're going back to the board and we're asking ourselves, okay, who should we be talking to instead?
Yeah.
And that's really important for people to do.
So I have a definition of what makes someone a professional advisor.
What is it?
It's once or twice in your work with that client, you can tell them no, and it sticks. Because if you think about it, right? If you're a financial advisor, those financial advisors that had developed intentionally or unintentionally the right relationships in 2007, 2008, saved their clients millions of dollars by saying, no, we're not going to sell when the market's low. And so I think, I bet you guys can resonate this when you look at your clients. You're like, oh, I think we got to do this thing. And you're like, no, we're not going to do by direct messaging on LinkedIn or like whatever the scheme is. Right. And I want you to think about that, because if that resonates with you or somebody's listening, well, what kind of person do you have to become? What kind of people do you have to help your team become? What kind of relationship do you have to create with your clients so that when it's life-changing or business-changing and they shouldn't go there, you can have them stop long enough to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, no, that is such a good point. And I know one of the things that a lot of people should be doing and that we've done at Brand 3 with that in mind is it used to be, there were only certain roles that were client facing and would get on meetings and talk about projects. And now it does not matter your position. Like if you are the expert on it and you're going to be working on this thing, then we want you to hear the client and we want them to be able to speak to you. And that has made such a huge difference.
Huge.
And we try and help our team, and Sarah knows this, maintain an identity as being guides. We tell them, you're not order takers. You are the guide, the strategic guide for our clients, and you're there to help, in a way, protect them from themselves. But what I really mean by that is, they forget stuff. So they have to be reminded, this is the strategy we were trying to run. This is why we're running this play. And you do that with an open ear to maybe that does need to change. You don't just stay stubbornly on the same path, but they need to remember why we're doing what we're doing. And they need to have encouragement to have the courage to stay on the path, especially when you are niching down, when you are making choices about who your ideal client is. And people think that's going to restrict them, but the paradox of it all is it's actually going to set them free. They're going to see better results on the other side.
Strength increases velocity. So you ready? You ready for a horrible question?
Yes.
And you should ask your guys' clients this.
Yes.
Ask them how many referrals their staff have given the business in the past year.
Oh, Matt, we do have to add that to our questions. That is good.
Now I have a system. I have a system for how we do that. But the only reason I brought it up is whenever I have a client is like, oh yeah, we get all the, we're perfect referrals. I go, good. How many referrals does your staff give you? Well, I go, look, if your staff's not introducing you to people, there's a couple of things that are really horrible that may have happened. And I'm just going to assume that you didn't want this to happen. But number one, they don't believe you want their help. Bad message. Number two, you haven't asked for their help. Number three, they don't believe in what you're doing. Or number 4, you just don't care. So which is it?
Yeah. No, it's funny, Mike, because when you were starting to pose that question, I thought for a moment there that you were talking about asking your clients, right? Like
Well,
what we
we do
do is
that too.
interview the ideal customer. And I can see that question working so perfectly there too, right? This is supposed to be your client, your referral partner, and we're going to interview them and ask them, well, how many people have you actually referred to this business?
Yeah. But
That'd be very telling as
Wait.
well.
that's all part of it because I'm measuring first
Yeah.
generation, second generation, third generation. And the reason being
Mhm.
is the most important thing in referrals is finding a person of peace from Luke 10. You have to identify that person that is going to receive your peace because not everyone is comfortable referring. And it's kind of wrong to expect everyone to be okay with it. I wrote Can I Borrow Your Car to help more people be comfortable with the risk elements associated with doing referrals in B2B. But everything I do is designed to identify people that get pleasure from referring. Those are the people that receive your peace. You have to identify the people, and what's the best way to identify the people who love referring? Giving. Because here's what happens. When you've got a giving strategy, it's the greatest thing in the world. It doesn't happen all the time with me because not everybody's into it. But I'll tell you a story about Eric Owen. He's a friend of mine. And he loved Can I Borrow Your Car? It changed his life. He's an incredibly prominent SEPA, certified exit planning guy. He runs the Wisconsin chapter. Unbelievable guy. And every time he and I would talk, he was asked questions about Can I Borrow Your Car? And he'd be like, hey, well, what can I do to help you? I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. And I kept giving to him on purpose. Number one, because I was looking for data. So finally, one day, I'll never forget, I was east of Charleston, West Virginia, driving back from actually being in Cleveland at Exit Planning Institute doing an event. I was coming back to West Virginia and I'm talking to Eric and he's like, well, what can I do to help you? I'm like, Eric, don't worry about it. He goes, damn it. I'm sick and tired. Every time that I try and help you, you deflect it. We are going to talk about how I can help you. I went, wow, oh, I'd love to. He goes, well, oh, okay. Well, what's that look like? I said, well, Eric, do you know someone that owns a financial services company with at least $5 to $10 million in revenue that is within an hour of where you work? He goes, I know 3. That's how we can help each other. And so I'm looking and creating opportunities for those people to show me without me having to be a velociraptor of referrals. I mean, I probably give 1,000 introductions per year, actually more, but I probably get 1,000 referrals. 950 of them I refer to other people after I talk to them.
Wow.
It's incredible.
How do you keep up with that?
Not well. Thank God for AI search and email.
So, Mike, let me come back to the giving piece because you're talking to the right guy. I'm the 2 Enneagram, right? I'm the giver, like to my own detriment sometimes, right? That, what kind of qualifies us as we keep giving. And I'm familiar with the theological framework, that you're coming from, right? That for me, it comes back to the Sermon on the Mount, which you could sort of look at as, this is sort of a crude way of describing it, but like a handbook for the best way to live. God's design for how we will live our best lives. And it opens with a thing called the Beatitudes, which turns all of our assumptions and values about how the world works best on its ear. But at the heart of all of it really is this idea that if you live in this posture you're talking about, to be a giver first, and that's the heart from which you're coming from, and that's the forward momentum that you live with. And that unpacks in all kinds of directions in terms of service, in terms of giving up the right to be right all the time and to forgive and to create pathways for reconciliation. There are all sorts of things tucked into that, but it does come back to being a giver. I think that's so powerful. And we look for sort of simple human And in this case, it's a spiritual truth as well, in this. And I think that's a big one to take away today. The fact that you're turning that value, so much of us think it's about survival. It's about it's about protecting ourselves, and giving is a vulnerable place to live, but ultimately a stronger one. And again, that's kind of the paradox.
Die to self.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are flesh and we are spirit. Right. And so I never will condemn somebody because they surrender to the flesh, because, hey, like, it's been a long day. So, I'm sure I don't even want to think about all the mistakes, but when you get down to it, the way that you make sense of that, Sarah, just to give you and it's from the book, but I'm just going to unpack it a little bit. I have a macro strategy for giving. Macro strategy, which is not predicated upon me being able to help everyone that asks for help. Right? So the macro strategy is low friction, high frequency, low risk, which is, I love referrals. How can I help you? And the only way this falls apart is if you become transactionally focused, which is hard because we are flesh, right? And so the reason I talk to people about having a giving system is it has to become in your DNA as a company, kind of like StoryBrand. When everyone in the organization knows the story and understands the arc for your clients, everything works better because it makes sense. So here's the macro strategy. Ask every client at least once a quarter, and other people you meet, how you can help them. And then shut up and listen. What's cool is some of them, your best clients, you'll be like, oh, Sarah, there's nothing. You guys are so great. I'm doing good. Well, don't beat them up to death and argue with them. Say, hey, that's nice, right? 30 seconds. What happened? Number one, they heard you honestly and sincerely ask if you could help. That's a marketing event. When you say, I love referrals, how can I help you? It's a marketing event. Then maybe the second time, third time, fourth time, and then they're having that day. And they're like, do you really mean it, Sarah? Do you really mean help me? Like, and you're like, well, sure. It's personal. Okay, great. Like, and you try and help them. Maybe you don't know a counselor, but you can pray for them. Like, often, because of some of the nature of what I do, it's like, I had somebody's like, hey, do you know anybody in international trade? I've got stuff stuck in customs in another country. I said, I have no earthly idea. And I don't even know who to ask, but would it be okay if I shared this with a couple of friends of mine that might know? And I found venture capital. I found all these different things, because what people really want to know is, do you give a rip about them? And I always, you have to make this, like, not everyone has to be the guide for the entire thing. They can come in and come out. So the micro strategy, though, when I have that data moment, like with Eric, where they show me that they want to help, everything changes. They become a priority on my calendar, and we go deep. I want to know their story brand, to use your guys' term. I want to know what are they really about? I want to know everything. And then because that's when we shift from what I call Chicken Little marketing for referrals, where you walk outside and something falls out of the sky and you're like, oh, my strategy works. No, survival's not a strategy.
It's everywhere.
Survival's a result. It's not a strategy, right? So instead, we shift to proactive. And so I was walking through some of my clients. They've got a $150 million financial services business. They're incredibly successful, right? It's going to be a $400 million business in 5 years. And I reminded them, guys, remember the woodpile from Farmer Boy, Little House on the Prairie, that series. Farmer Boy is a book about her husband. And guess what you do a lot when there's no electricity in upstate New York? What do you do a lot of the time when it's nice out? You chop wood, because winter's coming. Like, that's the Game of Thrones for newer generations, right? I told them, hey guys, you've earned the right. Don't go ask them to give you a referral. Ask them to share with you everything they have. We're literally going to have them identify between 100 to 200 owners of specialty manufacturing in the Midwest in 2 meetings, by name, by relationship, and then we harvest all that, cultivate, plant, reap. That's how we do this, because I get most of my referrals from 4 people, and those 4 people have shared everything, and we're working on multi-year strategies in some cases for 7 figures.
It's incredible.
Sound like marketing?
Well, it does.
It is.
It does. And I think it's a good cliffhanger for anyone to want to come, I think, and learn more from you. I mean, I wish we had 2 hours today, to just keep going. This is so fun.
Me too.
I wanted to point out before we do our last little bit here, it's so you're teaching people to scale through referrals. We have a new program called Scale Beyond Referrals, but they are not in conflict, because we're not saying at all that referrals are essential, and I'm dying for people to. And I want to learn more.
Well, my
I'm
system
dying
is not
for people.
everybody. My system is not for everyone. It's not. What you guys do can benefit far more businesses than what I'm talking about.
See, what I find to be the case, though, and Matt and I were kind of talking about this, at the end of the day, when we're saying scale beyond referrals, it's more like scale beyond your current referral network.
And a lot of that is, do you have I call it, do you have the grease, right? Is your branding, is it appropriate? Is it effective? Because what people don't understand is all of my stuff is within a commercial sales process. I'm still a copier guy. I don't sell copiers. Like this friend we were talking about before we got started, right? We've got to a point where the branding and stuff around it needs to be better to help get bigger clients more confident, because that trust, we've got multiple points of trust in a referral process. I can get a meeting, but maybe I can't close it because they went to my website and my website was clunky. It didn't match up with what they expected. Like there's so much about what I look at what you guys do is you guys not only can create opportunities that we can't do 24/7. Like I'm not open to talk to referral sources 24/7, baby. Right.
Yeah.
But you can also provide you can increase momentum. I call it the sequence of trust. Right. So I think it's when you say beyond referrals, it's no conflict at all.
Yeah. We think of it as we meet so many B2B service providers who gave up on marketing because they were never taught the right strategy. And we just know and believe that it can work for them if they take a human relational approach to it that honors the fact that they are a human relationship-based business. And that's, so we just help them reach a wider audience to our earlier conversation, the right people who they are meant to make those human connections with.
If your clients, if you help them develop a story and then you make that story tangible and visual and auditory, right? If you bring that story to life, they own their story.
Yeah.
And then they're more confident telling their story. They're more confident sharing their story. They feel worth meeting. That is so important because sales is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
What you do is beautiful.
Thank you. You too. Right back at you. Well, Mike, if you're willing, we have a final thing we like to do with people because, we've been talking about this has to be.
This is 7 questions. I'm so excited.
Yeah, these are the questions. Yeah.
We're
but we have a surprise today that Matt doesn't even know about. I'm adding a question because I've been wanting to ask it since the beginning of our call, and I've been patiently waiting for this moment.
Okay.
Let's do it. I can't wait.
This is our Behind the Brand questionnaire. We like to get to know the human behind the brand. And if anyone is interested in working with you, it's going to help them get a few more steps into who is Mike Garrison. Okay.
I can't wait.
Sarah, kick it off.
As someone who also enjoys jumping out of planes, did you get to jump out of planes and / do you still jump out of planes?
39 jumps. They were all static line. So I jumped out of helicopters and planes, which means I landed like bad, right? I do not currently jump out of planes. I jumped out of planes so much that I'm afraid that the odds are against me in regular flights.
Give it a few years and the stats will level themselves out. You'll be fine.
No,
No,
actually,
I'm kidding.
I was involved in a horrific parachute accident where we lost an entire Green Beret A team because the winds were too high, and so they were doing halo jumping. These are the guys, tabbies we call them. Those of us that were doing static line jumping, we all got wrecked. I was one of the few people that was able to walk off the drop zone. I had a broken nose, bit through my lip, knee was ripped open, no bursa, bleeding profusely. But all the Green Berets were desecrated because they tried to pop their chutes. You know this if you've done Halo, in 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Wow.
So they just got. Yep.
Right.
Ooh,
Yeah. And so, no, I'm
it's
good.
terrifying.
Now I've done also winter mountaineering, ice climbing. I've done lots of crazy stuff because I love adrenaline.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Incredible.
my fiance and I are the same. So that's amazing. Well, the next question then is, what is your go-to karaoke song?
It would have to be, I hate to say this because it sounds awful, but what comes to mind is Kill 'Em All, Metallica.
No, I think that sounds fun.
That has a distinguished note of being our first heavy metal entry into the series as
Yes.
well. So
But
congratulations.
I consider Metallica to be rock and roll.
There you go.
And then we just move upwards in
And we get
intensity.
heavier from
Yeah,
there.
I see that.
Right. Mike, what is the last thing that made you laugh out loud?
You guys, like this podcast.
Love to hear that.
Like,
Fun.
I mean, that's the trick.
Yeah.
I've done it like 4 times on this podcast.
Okay. The next question here is, what is your favorite way to get away from it all?
Fly fishing in a high gradient mountain stream, Tankara, fixed line, telescopic rod.
That was spoken like a fly fisherman. That
Yes, it was. And I'm going to
Yeah.
throw this out quick for you, Mike. If you're ever in the Maryland area, hit me up. I'll connect you with my brother. He's big into fishing and he would love to take you out.
I fish regularly on the Gunpowder.
Oh, you're in Maryland. Okay.
Well, my mom lives in Maryland,
Nice.
so yeah.
I live right off of Susquehanna and my brother has a boat in Haverty Grace.
Cool, excellent. I won't forget.
Fun times.
What smell reminds you of a specific place or time?
Wow. I have never been asked that question. So I'm going to eliminate the fart smell, remind me of the military. Because that, like, bad farting reminds me of, you drink a lot when you're young in the military, a lot.
Right.
Right. And so every time in a Green Beret unit, everyone, even if you're a cook, everyone runs every morning fast. And so when men that are really hungover run at high speeds, things happen. But on a good note, every time I smell coffee, I think of my dad.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good one. What is one day in your life that you would like to relive?
So this would be, so my dad passed away from cancer. He was the guy who got me into fly fishing. Even though he wasn't a Christian, he's the reason I'm a Christian, because of how he loved me. And so his picture's right here. Here. That's him at my graduation from airborne school.
Wow.
So I love my dad, greatest man I've ever known, with great demons. But last time we went fly fishing together was above Taos, New Mexico. So we're about 11,000 feet. And everyone had told us, it was the only time we could do that. I was visiting him in Santa Fe. And everyone had told us the water's too high, it's runoff, you won't be able to catch anything. And Dad and I were like, screw it, we're going to go. So we go up there and we finally we're way up in the Jemez Mountains, way up. And we look at the stream, it's just chocolate milk. And my dad's like, well, we went this far, we're going to get in. So we suit up, everything, get in there, start fly fishing. And like nothing happens for the first half an hour. My dad's about 100 yards away, upstream from me. And all of a sudden the light turned to that golden light that you only see in the mountains. And bugs started hatching and trout rose everywhere. And we were slamming them. I mean, every cast, bam, in the trout. And I'm fishing. And I remember I was like, this is one of the greatest days of my life. I looked over my shoulder upstream, and my dad was just turning to look at me. We smiled at each other, went back to fishing. We never talked about it, but that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
I love
He
that.
clearly felt the same. That's so powerful.
Yeah, and also you just told that really beautifully. I felt like I was there. That
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was a real gift. What 3 words would your loved ones use to describe you?
Tense, passionate, vulnerable.
It's a great combo. All right, Sarah, bring us home.
I'm really excited to hear your answer here because I know it's going to be amazing. What would it mean to you, Mike, to have truly succeeded in your work and not with your company, but you?
You hear Christ say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
Mhm.
At the end of the day, that is the one thing that I desire the most, is in spite of who I am and only because of who he is.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Well, it feels like we should just end it there, but like, where do you go? Where do you go from there? But I do need to make sure we ask you, what is the best way for people to reach out? Who should reach out to you, and what's the best way for them, to do that if they want to talk further about the referral training that we've discussed?
I got too many stupid websites and too many brands out there. But like, if you're at all interested in anything I'm talking about, go get a copy of Can I Borrow Your Car?
Okay.
Right? And the reason being is that if you invest the time reading that book, you can then contact me through LinkedIn or anything and say, "Hey, I read your book. I have some questions." And I will absolutely, with no screening whatsoever, give you a half an hour, 100%. You'll get a link. I'll send you a link for a half an hour, schedule it whenever. Now, if you use it too many times, that's different. But buy the book. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm somewhat active on LinkedIn, but I don't play the algo game because I understand that I'm a product on that platform.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, but you can find me on LinkedIn. You can do that stuff. The best email for me, because it's the actual parent company, is Mike@values with an S based mindset.com. Mike at strategicreferralteam.com works. Mike at caniborrowyourcar.com works. But read the book, because I wrote the book so that people would be imprisoned by talking to me.
Wow. Well, I've never heard anyone describe a book that way. That's great.
If you think about it, I charge $5,000 a day minimum to work with people when I'm working, right? Because it's super intense. There's lots of pre-work. You guys know this, right? You like anytime there's so much research. I had a problem. How in the world do I help enough people? I'm like, well, if you can't afford $20, you're not in B2B sales anyways. But so a book, I always tell my clients, write a book so not everybody has to be a millionaire to hire you.
Mhm. That's great. And Mike, I do want to say quick for our listeners, the full title of Mike's book is Can I Borrow Your Car? How Successful Financial Advisors Can Grow Their Business and Love Their Life. I know it's available on Amazon. Is there anywhere else that listeners can get your book?
I don't know of it, but if you do, great.
Okay, awesome.
If you can,
Well, you can get his book on Amazon.
maybe at yard sales around the country.
You got good reviews on there too, Mike.
It's amazing what happens when you beg. I mean, ask people to help you. So that book is a love language for sales.
Mhm.
Yep. We look on this podcast, we look for people with a heart of service. We look for difference makers, and it's just those qualities just sit with you with every word you've spoken. So it's just been a joy to spend this time with you. From our side of the table, if anyone liked what we were talking about, if you're a B2B service provider, you gave up on marketing a long time ago and just didn't see how it could work for you, we have an ongoing workshop series called Scale Beyond Referrals, where you can unpack that and understand why so often people have been guided down the wrong path for B2B marketing. ScaleBeyondReferrals.com is where you can find that. You can also find it at brand3.net. Thank you, Mike Garrison. And this has been Matt Wolf and Sarah Patisal with Brand 3. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining our conversation on how to scale a business without losing its heart. If you found this episode helpful, here are 3 quick ways you can support our podcast and share it with others. First, subscribe to the show here on this platform. Second, leave a review in your podcast app. Your feedback helps other leaders with a heart for service to find this community. And third, share this episode with a B2B leader who's trying to scale their business without compromising the quality of their services. The CEO's Heart for Service is a production of Brand 3. If you're a B2B service provider who delivers exceptional service, but struggles to get your marketing to connect with the right people, find us at brand3.net. And sign up for our Brand 3 newsletter that only sends marketing insights worthy of your inbox. Genuinely helpful stuff for the road ahead. The CEO's Heart for Service is also supported by Forge Podcast Company, a turnkey production solution for using podcasts to reach a wider audience, win new clients, and grow. Find them at forgepodcast.co.